Do your guests, are they supposed to prepare before they come on? That's your good side. You're right.
I'm usually better on this side.
I'm better on the other side.
Okay, great.
Oh, a good partnership. I mean, I did do my makeup, so neither side is my good side right now, but that's okay.
You look hot always. Au natural. Like a granola bar.
Testing.
So whenever you speak, I'm gonna be like
Mary. Like
Poppin'.
Mary Poppins.
Our image is quite poppin'.
One of my favorite movies when I was in middle school was Saving Mr. Banks, which is about Mary Poppins. Also has Colin Farrell, which, I mean, if you know. Sorry. Okay, sorry. I'll let you.
Wait, I'm gonna keep this part. So you. You played yourself. Okay. First, introduce yourself, please, and your artistic discipline / plins.
Plins. Hello, my name is Cynthia Gan. I'm from Vancouver. I'm a writer, and I like to make films sometimes with cool people like How.
And Matisse.
And Matisse. True. And Mara. Mm-hmm. And this is turning into a clap and cut advert. Yeah. Happy to be here.
Very cool. So to hit us off. No, this guest is violent.
Cut to like me chained down and you're like, go on.
Okay. Starting off, what's your favorite movie and why?
No, oh my god, you can't ask me that. Okay, that's so painful. Okay, can I give like a top 3 that I've watched recently?
Okay.
Off the top of my head. Okay. I also want a disclaimer. I feel like I'm gonna say some dumb shit because I was not prévu for these questions before. Mm-hmm. So if I say some stupid things, you know. Okay. In recent memory, favorite movies, Minari. It came out a few years ago, but I watched it like last year.
This was my favorite A24 film. Really? When we talked about it with Sophie and Jack.
Oh really? I really liked Minari. So many things to love about it.
The guy from Minari is in Beef, so you should watch Beef.
Steven Yeun, yeah. Mm-hmm. I watched him from The Walking Dead, but you know, that was anyway, moving on. I really let's say Little Miss Sunshine, because it just I don't know, something about it is so like, it's not like a pretentious like art house movie or anything, mm-hmm. but like it's one of my favorites. I just love it so much. And then let's say Chungking Express / just because I said 3, recently Bones and All, which was really good. Yeah, and I couldn't stop thinking about it for a few days after, so I'm going to say it. Yeah, How should watch, petition to get How to watch Bones and All.
Okay, continuing from our conversation, please tell our viewers, those who are scared of horror movies and gore, why you think it would be beneficial to them to have exposure therapy and watch more horror genre, thriller genre, gore genre movies.
Okay, listen. I think, okay, I'll give you your mic back. Sorry, I stole that from you. I got a little excited. Why, like, people who don't want to watch horror should watch horror. Mm-hmm. Okay.
What's the benefit?
First of all, I think there's a few misconceptions about horror out there, which is that it's all like gore, or that people like who are afraid of like supernatural things think like, I don't know, like Poltergeist, or like, I don't know, what are the trilogy movies, like the like Annabelle universe type things, which...
Why did you look at me like I would know?
But like nowadays horror is so diverse, and a lot of it is like cross genre, you know what I mean? Like if you don't want to watch anything that is like horror, I think you're missing out on a lot of like for example, Bones and All, which is like a drama, romance / horror. And like it really adds to it. But the thing is, more importantly, I think the thing is that it's good to be disturbed sometimes. Like I think it's good to be disturbed and like deeply disturbed every now and then, whether it's like literature or film or like art, like visual art. Like I feel like it's good for you as a human being to like be violently unsettled and disturbed. And I think that horror is like, I think it's worth the apprehensiveness that some people might experience going into it.
This is Cynthia's patient application for any mental facilities that would take her this summer.
It's also, I think, like things that make like unsettle you so deeply that it like shakes you out of yourself and like literally makes you feel like you're like disembodied after, makes you like, to some degree, I think when you watch enough of them, they make you like face yourself, you know what I mean? And they make you like face like why things unsettle us. And I just think like horror is such a unique, like it unlocks such a unique type of like emotional reaction that like, for example, I love a good drama and like a good like movie that leaves you like devastated or whatever, like hopeful or like angry or, you know, hopeless or like all these emotions. But like horror has this like specific, I don't know, really special way of like unsettling you. And I think that's like, I just like being spooked.
Yeah. She bites me all the time.
It's professional. On the POTE'CAST.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question, and you're gonna take my microphone just so I can check that it's still rolling.
Okay.
As a screenwriter, what would be your tips to a beginner? Like, how would you start screenwriting? What applications would you use to write? What workflow works for you? How do you get your ideas? Yada yada.
I think, is it still running? Yeah, it is.
Okay, good.
Slay. I mean, I would consider myself a beginner. Like I think it would be quite pretentious for me to be like, as a screenwriter.
She has 4 films on IMDb.
Stop. Okay, don't. No. Can you please cut this part out? I'm not even. I mean, it's weird. I guess for people who have never touched it before, I guess I can give what advice I can. But I do consider myself a beginner still. Mm-hmm. And like I still seek for advice from others. So I don't know that I'm the way your foot flinched.
We could touch it if you want. See the shit that goes on in these
Yeah. I think, wait, I'm getting a little warm. Sorry.
It's getting hot in here.
I'm gonna put it back on. I think, okay, as a beginner and as someone who is still like figuring it out and I'm just kind of like messing around, it's not like I'm definitely still a beginner as well. But what I use which is free, and it has both an upload to cloud option and a store on computer option, which is honestly all you need if you're beginning, kind of like me. It's called Scenarist. I think it's a French software, or like Scenarist. And it has a lot of really cool functions, super easy to learn how to use. So I like that. And it helped out a lot with like format and stuff. I think the one thing for like beginners like me to know is to not be like intimidated by all the like formatting and like technical stuff you need to learn for it. There's a ton of like YouTube videos and also just like articles and like manuals online that like I must have read like 30 of them. And what you realize is that in the end, it doesn't really matter because like everyone, like the little details that you try so hard to be like, how should I format these things? Like there's like 10 different ways of doing it. And even like if you read like scripts from just like any 2 directors within the past or 2 writers within the past year, like they don't abide by the same rules either. So like don't like, I don't know, dig yourself too hard into that hole and focus too much on that. And yeah, I mean, with writing, it's also like, I think like write fiction, write poetry, and that will help with like screenwriting as well. Yeah.
Very cool. What about as a veteran, as a weathered, as a experienced director? What would be like just a couple most handy tips for a beginner director on set? Like, what are the important things to keep in mind in terms of morale, in terms of efficiency, in terms of artistic spirit? I don't know.
As a beginner director, who all I've done so far is, do you swear on this podcast?
Yeah.
Okay. All I've done is...
Matisse and Louis started, like, rolling a joint.
Of course they did. All I've done is, like, fuck around on 2 sets with people who were willing to fuck around with me. So I really don't think I'm qualified at all to give any kind of advice.
It's a safe space. It's an open community. Just anything you'd like.
Okay, what I've learned from my opportunities over the past 2 short films that we made this year, I've learned is, like, I guess everyone has a different workflow, but, like, you will never regret any amount of planning that you do. Like, even if you're exhausted and tired and, like, you feel like, oh, it's fine, like, maybe I can just, like, be a bit lazy and, like, leave these details out. Like, any preparation you do, you will not regret having done it. Like, there's never a piece of prep where I'm like, oh, honestly, I could have, like, not storyboarded this, or, like, oh, honestly, like, I could have, like, just, like, waited till set day to, like, figure it out. Like, I've always been, like, thankful to my past self that, like, we chose to prep it before. Yeah, and then I think, like, morale-wise, it's also, like, I mean, looking at the different projects that we ran this year, the ones that I didn't direct as well, like, I think like, even if you're exhausted, like, how excited you are about the project, even just as, like, that one person in the room who's excited, like, gets everyone else excited or not. Like, it's really easy if you get, like, tired or start slacking or slipping, that I think people in the room will also, like, get unmotivated. But, like, the people behind the camera, if they're willing to, like, stay strong, like, it really does a lot for even, I don't know, like, the assistant production or, like, assistant directors to, like, for them to feel excited as well. So sorry, I feel like that was really incoherent and rambly.
No, that was really good.
Yeah.
Something interesting. We talked about this yesterday. We talked about this the day before yesterday. Do you want to expand on your maybe irritation or impatience of people, you know, kind of just, like, throwing out the term, oh, that's so cinematic, that's so Wes Anderson-y?
Yeah. Side eye, exactly.
Bombastic.
I mean, Wes Anderson has always been and still is one of my favorite, like, filmmakers. I think he's so special, and I, like, I didn't mention one of my favorite movies is definitely Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Yeah.
Like, that should be in my top 3. Although, to be fair, I've made my top 3 like 7 at this point. 5, yeah. Can't count either. But I think, like, what annoys me about this, like, phenomenon of people calling things, like, instead of saying that something is, like, cinematically very satisfying or, like, you know, pleasing or whatever, they say that it's, like, very Wes Anderson. I think what annoys me about that is that it becomes this thing that's, like, substanceless. You know what I mean? Like, it becomes, like, all shell and no filling, like, no substance. When the thing is that, like, the things that people love about Wes Anderson is, yes, the visual style, which also Robert Yeoman should also get credit for. But, like, it's also, like, so many things. It's the writing, you know? It's, like, the way that, like, through all his movies, it's very light and, like, childlike. And then at some point, there's always, like, a switch that's done so well. And it, like, that's what in all his movies, I think, makes them be able to, like, transcend into something that at the end of the day isn't just a lighthearted, childish movie, but becomes something more, like, deeper and more emotionally meaningful. And the way that he does that so skillfully, and the way that, like, his characters are all very, like immoral without, like, a sense of judgment from, like, the filmmaker, and, like, all of these little things that are the reason why, like, people love Wes Anderson's movies. But a lot of, like, people, what bothers me is, like, when like they kind of, I don't know, like boil down all of these like really great movies that like we love for so many different reasons to just like symmetry and like saturation. And that's, to be fair, like symmetry and saturation is like kind of a trademark thing of his movies, but like also like, for example, like set design and like elaborate like staging and stuff and like
lighting.
Yeah, like, and on TikTok, for example, like what I'm trying to do is not at all like gatekeep Wes Anderson films. Like I really want people to actually like watch them and like make like, you know, after Wes Anderson movies, which like or not movies, but like little fun short experimental things, which when done well are actually like super like quirky and funny. But like it really bothers me when like people take symmetry or saturation and they're like, that's Wes Anderson. And then also because like those are not the things that he invented. Like he comes up with really cool combinations of things that make his movies feel like signature to him, that are like 100 things other than the symmetry and saturation, just to, you know. And like when other filmmakers use kind of those elements in their own ways, like it kind of gets dubbed like, oh, you're trying to be Wes Anderson. And that kind of like, I don't know. It bothers me. I also feel like that was incoherent and rambly, so.
No, that was really good. That was really good.
Thank you. I remember like when we wanted to make our own little thing at the beginning of the year, like it was probably so annoying. I must have said to how like 8 times, I was like, I just like, we can't be saturated. We can't like have too much symmetry. We can't have like this because like I don't want people to like say that we're trying to be Wes Anderson, because I mean now it's not so much like actively planning everything around trying to not be that way, but like like clearly I watch so many of his movies, like I am like so influenced by like, but like I was so annoyed at the time, especially at the beginning of this year, by this like whole everyone calling everything cinematic Wes Anderson, that it like yeah.
No, I also have an issue. People might not understand this based on the last 2 pods because they think I'm shitting on Wes Anderson all the time, which I'm not. I'm just shitting on the public image of, or public perception of Wes Anderson.
It's like the... Sorry.
Don't worry, take your time. Hydration is key. Stay hydrated.
Actually out of water. Exactly.
I
like
have water.
Oh, don't worry. I'll get you. Thank you.
Okay.
Get you a teammate who will keep you hydrated.
I know.
I think, yeah, exactly. Like, I really love Wes Anderson. Like, he's probably one of my favorite, like, filmmakers, and I think his films are so special, and, like, there's something so, like, they're so apart from, like, a lot of works of cinema, and I love it so much. But, like, it's exactly like you said. Like, what bothers me is this thing that it's been built to become that is, like, kind of like an empty shell, like a puppet of, like, what it really is, that, like, in popular culture, like, you know, like they love it, but like not for. Now I sound like a pretentious asshole. Like, oh, they love it for the wrong reasons. But like, you know what I mean?
No, but it's because like it's like, oh, I feel like I'm gonna offend people. No, it's like when people I don't love it when people repost like not memes, but you know, like stills of photos that have like the captions on the bottom and have some kind of like some kind of title to the post, which is like kind of like niche, a little bit poetic, a little bit like existential, that like most of the time has nothing to do with the movie itself, but you know, they repost it and they're like, you know, this is one of my favorite movies, this is one of my favorite aesthetics, but they haven't, like most of the time they haven't even seen the movie themselves, you know. Where it's like, I feel like a lot of people, they like Wes Anderson for the visual aesthetic that that's coherent throughout his projects, but then they don't really delve deeper into like the actual messages of the plots of his stories.
Yeah. On the other, par contre, I am a sucker for the stills. Guilty. I do.
You're a screensaver.
I do like to look at pretty stills from the movies. But yeah.
Okay. I have another question that's a little bit different. You know how this year we had like I want to say groundbreakingly, but significantly more films, especially those nominated for like the Academy Awards, that were like over 3 hours. Like
the return of like long movies.
Yeah. What do you think of that? Like, do you think, because for example Avatar was like 3.5 hours, something like that.
Wow.
So super, super long. There were a lot of other films that were also like up to 3 hours.
Tar was too long.
Yeah, Tar was way too long. So, I mean, on one hand, you know, some people could be like, you know, a story takes as long as a story takes.
Yeah.
But do you think that these movies are kind of setting a standard where it's like, you know, for like film competitions, they have categories of like feature films are about like what, like 50 minutes to 2.5 hours, and then short films are like 10 to 30 minutes, something like that. Now that there are so many films that are around like 3 hours, do you think they're setting a bar for future feature films to be that long? And if so, do you think that's just too much time spent at the cinema? Or would you say like for example, Babylon, it was really long. It was another 3-hour film.
Yeah.
But from what I've heard, so much was going on that people didn't even realize it was 3 hours.
Yeah. No, that Babylon was like it felt like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I think the question of like the length of time to me like is part of like a bigger phenomenon, which is like awards grabs of like films that are made for a specific audience, which is like, I feel like these production houses and stuff are trying to figure out the formula of what critics and like, I don't know, like the panel of like the Academy Awards, what have you, tend to like, which tend to be like more abstract, philosophical, like sometimes pretentious movies. And so like, for example, if you look at like the nominees and winners of like the Cannes Awards for like this year and the past few years, a lot of the time it's films that like the general public actually does not know about and does not rave over, but it's stuff that like critics and like film connoisseurs will like indulge kind of. And so I feel like I honestly don't really know what to make of it, but I think it is part of this like greater phenomenon of like catering films to like almost with like an award in mind, you know what I mean? And that's, I mean, to some extent that is speculation, because how are you gonna like say that, oh, you made this film for like this reason and not this other reason, like you know? So
admit it.
Yeah, we know you did. So yeah, but I mean, with regards to the length thing, I think right before this, I think it might just be part of a general trend. Like right before this, there was like kind of a rise of like in the mid 2010s, like hour and a half films and like even like close to an hour films, which was like so short compared to like previous movies that were like, for example, like before the like 2000s, like more closer to 2 hours. Oh no, actually I guess not. But like the pacing, for example, like if you watch older movies like from like the 50s to the 80s, 90s, like they're also, you can feel that like the pacing and the editing and cuts and stuff are done with a different average attention span of the population. Like TikTok has really like now movies tend to be like cut and like paced in a way that is like holds our attention, because and you can tell because when you watch movies from older movies from a few decades ago, like I sometimes catch myself feeling bored, but it's like, no, like this is not, like I'm not supposed to be bored by this, like my attention span has been ruined. So, and I think this is like, so, you know, through time and with whatever, like there's been these like different trends and changes of like what will appeal to like the attention spans and like just the general taste of like a generation at the time. And so I feel like maybe that's just part of like the little movement direction that we're currently in. Yeah.
I think something that comes to mind is also in film class we were talking about this, and we were talking about the two distinctive ways in which films were the ways in which films were filmed, like technique wise, from the start of the epoch of film till now. And in the beginning it was like very distinctly there's a Soviet style and then there's this Hollywood style by like Einstein and other filmmakers. And what's funny about the Hollywood style is that like you could take, for example, from the 70s, you could take the same films, you could take like French new wave films of like, we watched this clip of this guy on, it's actually really cool, I feel like you should watch it, but this guy with like a motorcycle, and then he like drives into like the Parisian subway systems.
Oh wow.
Like with a motorcycle.
What film is that?
It was one by Truffaut.
Okay, I'll find it.
I'll send you the name when I find it. But he would drive from like the stairs to the platforms into the metros. But what's interesting is there felt like, when I was watching, I felt like there was something missing about the action. And then we talked about it, and I realized it was because they took a lot of like, they would place the camera on a tripod and they would take still shots of the movement, but they wouldn't focus on like the little details. Like if this was a Hollywood film, like when he jumps onto the platform, there would probably be like 20 different shots of like
a close up of the wheels hitting the
exactly
ground, like his hand revving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think part of it might also be that like mainstream films are just, we haven't noticed it explicitly, but we've just like completely moved into this like Hollywood style of filming where you have like a bunch of different angles of the same shot, even if it's not necessarily that like meaningful. Like there's no intention behind it except to like have this like rapid pacing of editing and cuts.
Interesting. I saw this thing that said like when you're looking at a screen, like your eye focuses on the same image for like 12 or 20 seconds or something max before like you like automatically zone out. And so like there's that like time period where you have to like make a cut or something like that.
Yeah. What have we become?
Yeah. Case in point, what have we become? Those TikTok videos of like movie scenes playing on the top with background music that's not even from that movie, and then like fucking Subway Surfer on the bottom. Icy like told me about this. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I was like, what kind of dystopian? And then I realized it's a whole thing that like a lot of people are watching. Like this is like nightmare fuel.
I was considering doing this for my podcast.
Oh my gosh. No way. You talking on the top and like Subway Surfer on the bottom.
Like soap cutting on the bottom.
Here's Seafoam. I honestly, I don't know if I can answer this question. I'm trying to think.
You think about it while I repeat my question. Sorry, the camera got cut. I don't know where. But I asked Cynthia, what is a film where it's like when she's able... when she's able to produce a film to look like XYZ, then she'll feel like she's made it. Whether it's because the directing's so on point, or the writing's so beautiful, or the colors, or just the way that they all mesh together. What would be her like reference point?
I feel like this is an impossible question. So I'm gonna hijack your question because I thought about it and I couldn't. I just think it's so like there's so many like groundbreaking, soul-shattering movies out there that it's impossible to pick one and be like, you know. But I think like just personally, like a movie, if like there's a certain kind of movie and I'll take a representative out of that group, which is like but like it's just super random, and I feel like this is not a well thought out answer, but for the way that it makes me feel, like if I'm ever able to work on a production or ever work on a movie that makes me feel the way that La La Land feels, then that would be like, I think, you know, like you're trying to get to somewhere like that. Not in terms of like what the movie is or like the musical or genre even, or like the visuals or anything, even though everything is like very perfect about that movie in my opinion. But like just for the pure way of like the things you feel throughout and the way it's like stays with you after, and like the way that all of it as like a work collectively makes you feel at the end. Like it's, I don't know, it's a very subjective answer, but like purely for the way that movie like makes you feel, I would say that La La Land. Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say Whiplash, and I got a little scared.
I really did like Whiplash as well.
Yeah. All right. Final words, go.
Subscribe to, is this a subscribe type thing? Subscribe to the POTE'CAST, or subscribe to this, I don't know if that's the name. Subscribe to How House Podcast. I'm a big fan. Looking forward to more episodes.
Do you want to explain what POTE'CAST, why it's funny to the
No.
to your fellow Americans out there?
Cut it there.
No more
End it
pot.
there. Yeah. On n'est plus de pot.
Okay. All right. Thank you for tuning in to episode 3.
That was not a fart. That was the couch.
Yeah, you did pete.